We present now. Go Jitendra.
Yep. Thanks, Chen. So thanks guys for joining today's session. So I will start with a little bit intro. So my name is Jitendra. I'm tech lead at Aceik. I'm MVP for 2021. So today we are going to discuss about ASP.NET Core and how we can create our component and page using the Docker. This is the new feature, came with the Sitecore 10. So these are the agenda. So we'll do a quick update on the Sitecore. We'll discuss the overall flow, and then we'll do a demo. We'll create a few component using ASP.NET Core, and we'll see that how we can push our changes, what would be the development flow, how the Docker would work, and a little bit like Kubernetes. That's part of this package. So that's area we will touch. And what feature it supports. It's supported for now, and a few tips for the development, because I got a lot of errors. So I captured those details, so I will share it there. So that will help to everyone, and then we'll take the questions. So let's start. So update from the community. So Sitecore Virtual Developer Day, it's on 17 March. So I would highly encourage, all of us to go and, register there. And then Sitecore 10.01 release on 25th of March, and then recent acquires of 2 companies. So I always start with a, a few update, and then this is what we are trying to cover today. So with the Sitecore 10, now the development approach, like we used to have the, our machines with the IS setups and all the local environment setups. So it's with the Docker now, side with the Sitecore 10. So we'll do this component on the local environment using the Docker. The second is the headless content. So JSS is already there. But with this, then there is ASP.NET Core rendering as SDK available, which works as a middleware. So we'll discuss that, and then traffic, which is a reverse proxy for managing the URLs. So so this is the Sitecore XM overall structure. So if you see, this is very base structure where we have the database indexes and the Redis case, and then we have identity server, content delivery, and the content management, and then traffic is sitting at the front. So all this environment is running in the Docker. With the Sitecore, with ASP.NET Core, it would be a change that ASP.NET Core will work as a middle layer between content delivery and the traffic. So the ASP.NET rendering host will get the request from the client in it, and then it connect with the content delivery to get the data, in a JSS format, and then it will serve the data to different insights. So this is for the XM. The similar architecture we have for the XP. So again, a few more layer, but the main point, if you see the yellow highlighted, so it's more about the ASP.NET rendering host. So this is the just a flow diagram that how the request comes in and how the content will be served. I will more focus on the demo part. So this is the installation part that we would need if you want to set up this local machine. So we would need .NET Core 3.1 SDK and the .NET Framework 4.8 SDK because we would be running the Sitecore 10, Visual Studio 2019, and Docker for Window with Window Container enables, and the PowerShell version 5.1. Now, how to start the development? So these are a few things and command we can follow, but I will just go away like straight away start the development part. So to start the development, basically I would start this piece. So this is an MVP GitHub project, so which has the vanilla setup with the ASP.NET Core, rope, and like they have done good job to set up all this structure. So we can get this from the GitHub. So this is a very good to start the project. So if you can see this structure, it's really helpful to understand this thing. So if you want to run this ASP.NET Core project on your local machine, what you need to do is you just need to set up your local certificates with the license key. To do that, you would just run this init PowerShell script, and in this script, you will just pass your local certificate path. And this script, basically, if you see, it will generate the certificates, set this Git repository path, and then it will do all the prerequisites setup for you. It will do the host entries on your local machine, and it will set up all the variables, which would be here on your local user config. And yeah, and then it's simply done. So if you see my presentation, so the first is you just need to run this install PowerShell script, and then the path of the license file and the admin password. Once you run this command, it will be up and running. And the second would be you just need to run this up PowerShell script. So this, just me stop this. So this basically PowerShell script will spin up the container for your local environment. So let me open this script. Okay, so this script will, if you see, it will start building the container. So Docker compose up, build the Docker. It will spin up your Docker composer in disconnected mode, and then it will write this. It will warm up your local instance in the API, and that's it will do the serialization. It will publish your content, and finally your site will be up and running. I have done already here. So if you see my PowerShell window, because I don't want to take this time, so I just Control C. I'll just clear this instance. So if I go to here, this is my root directory. And if I go and do Docker container list, all the container. So now you can see all the containers are up and running, and I can see here also in the Visual Code. So I have these container 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, which I showed you in the slide. So one container for traffic, one is for ASP.NET Core rendering, one for the CM, one for CD, one for identity server, one for SQL, one for Redis, and then one for the Sitecore content registry for the Solar. So this local instance is up and running. It hardly takes a few minutes. The most of the time takes is to download these images. So to show you further, so basically this would be the local instance which is running using the ASP.NET Core SDK, and I will just log in here. So now you can see with this sample SDK, when I ran this on my local system. So recently they have done a very nice mini site, which has the complete MVP sites up and running. So all these components, navigations, this are built on ASP.NET Core. Now what we will do, we will create a one more component, and then we'll see all in and out that how it works. So again, before going and creating a component, I would like to highlight about this project. So, so this is the SRC project. So we have a simple code here. So we have a few features for the base content, hero, navigation, and social. And then we have the foundation just to set up the content and just basic project setup. Now, the second thing for this project is it has the Docker folder, and within the Docker folder, it's mounted the instance as a volume. So whenever we do change in our local Visual Studio, the watcher is running, which keep pulling those data and pushing into those folder. So watcher is basically watching these folder and pushing inside the container. And the good thing which I just wanted to show you here. So there is a PowerShell, this YAML script, so which we can use basically to build the resources, and there are stages for the deployment. So this one is script, and even for the Kubernetes, so there is a PowerShell script where we can spin up a new Azure Kubernetes services. So we just need to pass the parameter that what is the reason, what is the resource name, and what is the AKS name, and all a few parameters, and it will invoke the Azure CLI. It will set up the CLI, and it will create the AKS instance. So it's like complete package. If you want to do a local development using the Docker, create your custom image, push that image into Azure Content Registry, and then you can deploy it from there. So these are the specifications for the Kubernetes. I won't go in depth because I will focus on the ASP.NET Core. So now for the ASP.NET Core, if I go there, we'll just log in into the Sitecore instance. Okay, so this is my local instance. What we will do, we'll create a new component, and then we'll see that how this ASP.NET Core works, and then what is the benefit of using it. Like we'll debug the code. So with the default setup, if you see, so this is the MVP site, which has a few pages here. So what we will do, we'll create one more page with one more component. To create a new component, it's following the helical structure. We'll go in the feature. Maybe I will create a new feature. Let's say this is a simple, let's say simple banner. So this is this would be my feature name. Inside the banner, if I just create a new template, and I will give it a name called banner. Okay, so I will just add details. Let's say I need title for this banner, which would be the single line text. I would need description, which would be, let's say, rich text. I would need one image, which again would be an image. And I would also need, let's say, a CTA called link. So it would be a general link. And let's say I need a date field. So it's a date, it would be date field. So now we have created a template for the component. Now the next step would be that it's like the classic how we were creating the component. So after creating this template, I will go into the layout, and in the rendering, I will go in the feature, and I will create a rendering variant. So I will give it the same name, let's say banner. And now this would be a JSON rendering. So I will give it a name called banner. So for this banner, basically now we need to, define that what is the data source of this component called the rendering. So I will go there and I will define the data location. Let's say data location would be the local one. I'm not too sure why it assigned my keyword. Okay, so this would be the local, and where is the so I will define the data source. This is the data source. Okay, data source location I will choose from here, from the template, from the feature, from banner. So this is my data source, and I would need to define location for, let me check. I just have one more promo. I just wanted to make sure that I'm following with this one. So data source template, and this location would be the current location. So I will take this from here. So it's current location, and this is a template. So I will choose the template from here, feature, banner, and this is the banner. So now here, we need to make sure that the name of the component should be the same, because the ASP.NET Core SDK works based on the name, like the name exactly match with the component. So now we have created this rendering. So the next step would be, we'll go and in the placeholder settings, I will allow this new rendering from here, from the main component. So I will go and allow this new banner from here. So the rendering feature banner. So this is my new banner. I will make this at the first. So now the component is ready, but now how this component will serve the data to ASP.NET Core, how it will consume, and then how it will be served to the CD server. So now here I will create a new page. Let's say I'll just save it. I will. So one thing I missed, I need to set up the standard value here, which is like just a basic practice. So I will go there, and options, I will just set the standard values. So in case if there is no value, we can see the data. So I will just set the value, let's say test title, and test description. Image, I will choose from the media library. Let's say this is the image. Showing some error, so I need to pass the alt tag at least, test image. So I'll save those data. Okay, link, I will just paste the external link, test, and maybe from the Google, and date for today. So now we have the data ready, and then we have used the JSON rendering there. Now if I create a new page here, let me share this one. If I create a new page called banner, Okay, so we have created this page. Now I will open this page in the Expense Editor. Now here, I will try to drag and drop this new component. So click here. So now you can see the banner component is here. Now when I select this component, it's taking time. So now I would just create a simple content. It's already like inside this one. So I'll just create, let's say, banner content. And so if you see, I think it didn't close. It should close ideally. So if I save this one, so now when I choose this component, I got an error message saying that, hey, this banner component is unknown, because now what we have done that we got the data and we have created this JSS rendering. So now we have the raw data, headless data. Now we need, usually like we need either the front end who can read those data. So we are using the ASP.NET Core. So now we will create the view in ASP.NET Core, and then we'll use these JSS services to consume those data. So now in this project, if you see, so I will just provide you a walkthrough that how it works. So it's following the Helix principles. So this is the project, and within the project, you can see there are two projects. One is on .NET 4.8, which is for the Sitecore. So it has only the settings for the site configuration, and it has the it's using the Sitecore content serialization. So it has the high level nodes, the predicates for layouts, placeholder, media forms, and for the API key, because we would need the JSS services up and running. So this project is just filling all the project structure foundation. Now the main project is ASP. So this is ASP.NET Core rendering. So this project, if you see, let me close this everything. So this project has a startup. So in the startup, if you see, it's very standard ASP.NET Core applications. But what Sitecore team they have done is like from here, these are the routing, very standard .mbc routings. From here, basically, we have added the Sitecore layout services, and these services would need two things: the name of the site and the API key, right? And what is the handler? It's a default handler, and it will just set up these layout services. So these variables, it's here in the app settings. So we have this key. So this key, if you have worked on the Sitecore JSS framework, it's under the settings folder. You define the item name. So when we run this project, basically it will initialize this layout services, and these are the registration for our component. For each component, it's like the typical MVC view. You need to register the components, and there's a one default partial view, which is component not found, because we don't have any component here. So if you see on this screen, it's unknown component. So basically it's coming from this one. So if I go into the view, and if I check this one, component not found, which is this one. So it's giving me unknown component and then name of that model, which is unknown component. Now we need to plug in a new component so that this ASP.NET Core rendering can get those data from the JSS. So we will create a component, but I just wanted to let you know that once we have this JSS ready, how the data will looks like. So I have this postman here. So why it's getting slow? Okay. So this is my local instance. You can see this is my local instance, Sitecore API layout rendering JSS, and I'm just searching any items which has the promotions, and I'm passing this API key, which is the same mentions in the folder. Now we have created this banner. So what I would do, I just wanted to see if my services are up and running. So if I hit this one, I won't get anything because I need to publish my content. So what I would do, I will go here. I can do it from here. That's much easy. So from the expense editor, let me scroll this thing. Okay, let me publish from here. So publish item. So do a smart publish all the related items. So 7 items has been created. Now if I go and hit this postman, so ideally I should be able to see the data. Okay, so now we can see the data, which is great. So now here in the data, we can see that if I go down, so this is the banner, and there's no any fields details, right? So if I add a field, let me scroll up. So it's getting very slow. This should come from the standard values. That's what I was expecting. Let me double check. So for this banner, if I go here, so this data are there. Just change title 1. Usually I publish from here, but system is very slow. I will need to check these publish sub items. Now you can see 6 items been created. So I think I missed to update the sub items. So if I just hit this again, so now if I scroll down, okay, so then more. Okay, now we can see we have these values of all the data. So now we have this JSS up and running, very straightforward. Now here, what I would do in the feature, I will just quickly create a new view and model, and then we'll just bind this with our custom module. So from the, let's say, I just wanted to use any one of this one, so it won't take much time. So if I go there and if I create a new model, So I will just give it a name, class, say banner CS. Okay, so I will just copy this content here just for the sake of time. So just use this one, and I will replace this name to banner. So we have almost same field called title, description, image, link, and date. Everything is same. So now we have our model ready. And now the next step would be I need to create a view. So one thing I just wanted to let you know, the moment I do any change here, the watcher will keep sending those to Docker container. So it's I don't need to do any deployment. To see that, I can run this watch command, which is here. If I just run this watch command, so basically you would say docker compose log, and then you would need to run this command. So I need to run this inside the Docker. And then I will run this command. So this command will just give me the logs. So I don't want to run this one, but the content will be pushed, will verify in the content registry. So this model is ready. Now what I would do, I will create a new view. Again, I will just right click, add new items, and then I will give it a name. I can choose from here, but that's okay. I can give it a name called banner.html. Okay, so it's trying to get the class wide, but that's okay. So I have this view ready. So what I would do, I would just copy this view content, and I will paste here. And I will just change the name to banner. Okay, I think this won't work. I need to create the view. So let me create maybe the duplicate view of this one for now. Just create a copy. Just paste it here. And I will delete this banner. And I will just replace the name to banner. And so I will use my model, which is banner. Okay, so now we have created the view and model. Now we just need to register this this model and view. So to do that, if we have the complete new component, so you would go in the project, and then where I showed you that in the startup, we'll just add here as a new component, because there's already one feature. So I will just go here, and if I go to the definition, so I will just add one more. And just register the banner. To name called banner. Okay, so that's it. Just for my just to make sure, I would usually build this solution, so it won't create any issue. So this is my hero component. I will just build this one. It's taking time, but shouldn't take much time. Okay, what I would do, I will check here on my Docker registry that I can see that view. So if I go here, okay, if I go inside the Docker, okay, and if I go to the rendering in the config, source view, if I go there, so it didn't come here. Okay, I was expecting this should come here. So it's built successfully. Let me refresh this page. Okay, so there's some issue with this rendering, so we can quickly have a look. So it's a timeout. So nothing serious. I'll just refresh this layer again. So now we can see. So we got this test title 1, which we just created the content, and now we have deployed a custom view using the ASP.NET Core, and now we can edit this one, and then we can verify on the CD server as well. So this was my previous thing. If I just use this page called banner, so this is the banner. Now there are a lot of benefits of using the ASP.NET Core, and we can see everything is running inside the container. We don't need to, I didn't publish anything. I just made a change in the solution. It would deploy in the registry, and then it's so fast. So we just created a new component here. So few things with this ASP.NET Core, now we have more flexibility. Like if I want to debug the whole project, because it's completely .NET Core based, so I will just set up this as a startup project, and if I just do the run, so So I just wanted to show you that now I can debug the whole project. So this is my local instance. So if I just put a debugger like on the component, then I can see, what data I'm getting from the JSS and if I need to make any change. So if I just put a debugger, let's say on my component, which is feature, let's say on the hero, on this one, I created this banner. So if I just put a debugger here, and below the line, you can see we have each container. If I want to debug any CD or CM instance, I will just right click on this container and then I will just attach to process, and I can see it, I can debug from this instance CM and CD both. So that's very good. I think I'm running out of time, so I will just quickly wind up this one. So if I just hit my page, which is /banner, so basically you can see now it's started, debugging. So I can, so basically with the ASP.NET Core, as we already know, there are a lot of benefits, there's a feature is called for a new version cross platforms. And this is very straightforward if we want to use it. However, there are still a few limitations that it's not completely, you can use the Aceik, the X-Connect. So goal and those things are still in progress, but it's in a good shape, in a working condition. So I have a few slides. I will just quickly uh, close this one. So I think I'm running out of time. I won't take much time, just 2 more minutes. Not sure why my system is slow. Okay, sorry, I started from here. So okay, so we have covered this one, and it's taking. Okay, so the local development setup demo we have just done. So we will get, I got a few error, let's say the 500. So this is because I didn't put the right name in the rendering and in the model. So it should be the same name. I got few more errors. So most of the time I need to remove all the container and the reinitialize. It's very few lines of code. I got this again invalid .NET SDK. I again refresh the container and then it worked for me. A few more error. I got unable to connect to the remote server. Again, I stop, reset up the container, and then it for me. 404, I got one time this error because it didn't initialize properly and the name was not correct. So it's at common issues. This is Postman. I will send you this. So these are the references where we can see all the common issues there. What feature are not supported? Horizon, it is still not fully supported. Sitecore forms, X-Connect, goal events. I was trying to create a few sample project, but still that's in progress. A few tips, you can use this Visual Studio container tools to see all the container logs. And so nothing much, you can use this push, publish, think. So these are the few common command, and yeah, that's it. So yeah, so that's what I just wanted to cover. I'm happy to take questions if you have any. Do we have any questions?
So this Sitecore JS is the Postman schema which you have shown, right?
Yep.
So is there a way to like frame the model, like it have all the standard fields and it basically serializes the entire object, right? So, but we need only the fields. So you have to get only the fields and more like for a disconnected way of development, like the client can be anything, not within Sitecore end to end, but it's Sitecore just for content. And I need only the fields that's required for the component. Is there a way to do that?
So this is the out of the box. I think there is a way, but I'm not 200% sure. So maybe I will check and get back to you.
Yeah.
So it's Rahman, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I will just check. So because with this headless approach, of course, you won't expose all the fields. So there is a way, but I'm not too 100% sure. So I will check and get back to you.
Yeah, sure. Because in our organization, we are using Sitecore mainly for content, and
Yep.
we have completely decoupled the applications like all our React apps.
Yep.
Yeah, so yeah, good. Thanks.
Yeah, I agree. I 100% agree. Right. So any more questions? If we don't have any questions, Chen, I will hand over to you.
Thank you so much, Jitendra. That was very interesting. Thanks for presenting. Appreciate it. Guys, let's take a 5-minute break. And then we have Gurlin Sai to do his presentation after 5 minutes. Now it's 6:55 too. So let's start just before 7. 6:57, I guess. I'll see you guys soon.
Yep, good. Thank you.
Thanks, Jitendra. Hey everyone, we're back now. Our second presenter is Gurlin Sai. He is Solutions Architect at Sitecore, and he'll be taking us through the Contenthub e-commerce connector. Gurlin, would you like to start sharing your screen, please?
Yes. Let me share my screen. Let me know when you guys can see my screen.
Not yet.
Not yet, Gurlin.
Oh, sorry, didn't press the share button.
Here we go.
Cool.
Cool, thank you.
Hey guys, thanks for inviting me to present here in this user group. It's my first one for Melbourne. A bit of introduction about myself. My name is Gurlin Singh. I lead the professional services team for Southeast Asia region based out of Singapore. Have been with Sitecore for over 4 years now, and have been working on Sitecore for a little over 6 years. And I work on all sort of products, XP, XC, and Contenthub. The thing that I'll be talking to you about today is around XC and Contenthub. Primarily the connector that we built as part of our POC or our internal offering from the professional services team. Just give me a second. Let me close off my. Second, stop back at you. Yeah. So as you guys know, right? So we bought Contenthub a little over a year and a half back. And since then, we have been putting in a lot of strategy and innovation into integrating it with the base platform, which is XP per se. And there has been recently asks about why not XC, because I'll show you later on the reasons for those and why is there is a need for integrating Contenthub with XC as well. And that was recently fulfilled from the product side as well from 10 onwards. So my connector that we built was primarily pre-10. So if you are still on 9 versions of XC or XP, there is no official connector per se from Sitecore, but this is a sort of POC which you can use to then drive your own connector. And the reasons behind this is basically Sitecore has been strategizing and investing a lot into these 3 core pillars, which we call inside Sitecore as part of our investments and our future roadmap and strategy as well. So the first one is to solve the content crisis, and Contenthub is the centerpiece to solving that bit of a puzzle. The second bit is personalized with precision, and our base product XP and its awesome personalization engine basically takes care of that bit. And the third bit is to gel it all together and drive the commerce connections in the real world. Now, a little bit of Contenthub. It's not just a DAM platform. It basically solves all your content crisis. As part of Contenthub, people normally know that it has a DAM, but it does have other modules in it altogether. With the second module is being called MRM, which is the Marketing Resource Management, which basically allows you to plan your campaign activities, just like a project planner sort of a module. The third bit, which we'll be using in the demo later, hopefully if it works, is called PCM, Product Content Management. So this is an addition on top of the DAM, wherein you just do not manage your images or raw files. You can actually manage your entire PIM structure inside Contenthub itself. And the last bit is the CMP, which is a content marketing platform. Now this is creating a lot of buzz in the market nowadays, CMP. And it's primarily because CMP gives in the ability to gel everything together and sort of have that picture where you solve all the 3 buckets all together. With all these stuff, you can actually manage, maintain all your content on Contenthub, not just the DAM assets. So you can have your product images, relationships, their related attributes, assets, catalog information, as well as normal day-to-day content, your Twitter feeds, your social links, your messages that go out to any other channels, your EDMs. all that can be actually managed inside Contenthub using all these four modules that are part of the Contenthub itself. And then you can collaborate on top of your content with your peers. It goes through a review cycle. It does have these tools inbuilt into the platform where you can annotate and send it back. The creator can then take action on that image or that particular content item, send it back for review, and then it gets pushed out to the world. Also, as part of the MRM system, which is your marketing resource management, you can actually plan all your activities, where the content is coming from, who manages, who approves, who updates the content, what's the life cycle of your basically your campaign, how it gets pushed out to the different channels. And from there on, you can basically then do an ROI on your campaigns. So all this together gels well with all the channels that are out there. So Sitecore being one of the channels, which is CMS marked over here on top. It could go to your POS terminal, CRM, apps, retail, any other channel that you want it to be pushed to. Now, when we talk about these three products together, XP, XC, and Contenthub, an ideal solution would be something which has Contenthub as your place where you build your content, you nurture your content. Sitecore being an area where you can actually then just measure the content's effectiveness and then increase your effectiveness of the content and its reach through personalization and all the other marketing tools that we have in XP, and then drive the conversions and get your ROI back through commerce. Now, there's a huge disconnect between all these three products. We have Contenthub and XP being integrated from the initial get-go itself through the TAM connector, and then later on we had the CMP connector, but there was no such connector between XC and Contenthub per se. XP and XC talk to each other, but there was no communication between Contenthub and XC. And the PCM information that we had inside Contenthub, it was not very ideally relatable to the connector that we had, the CMP connector. So that information was sort of not useful inside XP itself. So that's the journey that we took upon ourselves to build that connector between Contenthub and XC. Just to give you a bit of background on XC, it's a microservices based architecture, has 4 roles, just like Sitecore has 4 roles, CDCM, processing, reporting. Inside XC, we do have 4 roles for 4 different purposes altogether. Shops, authoring, ops, and minions. They serve their own individual purpose and they're supposed to be used by certain services inside XP, such as CM is supposed to talk to the authoring service, which has a bit more flexibility on the authoring, lesser caching. CD is supposed to talk to the shops instance, which is high on caching, a little bit less on the flexibility and the accessibility of the entities. And XC from the get-go has been designed in such a way that it's supposed to be extended, right? So the way that the extensions work inside XC is you build a plugin. And you can then drop the plugin into your XC solution, wherein you have your pipeline blocks of execution. They get executed as and when you want them to be executed. So out of the box, you do get a bunch of plugins from XC, like customer entitlements, cart management, payment, pricing, inventory, which are pretty standard commerce related activities that any site should have. So what we did is we added in an extra plugin over there called the Contenthub plugin. How the data flow actually works between XC and Contenthub is inside our Sitecore ecosystem. So this is an XC ecosystem. We actually created a message handler module, and we also incorporated the Web SDK. Now, Web SDK is sort of like an external integration mechanism to talk to Contenthub. And then inside Contenthub, we use 2 things. One is called an open API endpoint, and then the other thing is called triggers. Now, how triggers work is basically you set something inside Contenthub. It's a configuration, no coding required for that. I'll show you how it's done later. But what it does is basically after a user takes an action, which is defined by that trigger, you can actually initiate to do some activity. Now triggers initiate an action method inside Contenthub, and then actions have a lot of possibilities. And one of the possibilities is to drop a message onto the Azure Service Bus. Now, how we designed it is, if a user goes into the Contenthub and is managing and maintaining his PCM information, product content management information, he updates the product's images or any other attributes related to the product, description, title, name, public links of that image, where it's going to be used, all that stuff. It triggers a trigger inside Contenthub and it initiates an action. Now the action basically goes in and drops a message on the Azure Service Bus, to which the Sitecore's message handler has subscribed to on the other side. Now, the message that gets dropped onto the Azure Service Bus does not necessarily have all the information of that PCM entity. It becomes pretty expensive to chunk out a huge entity and then pull out all the relations of that entity as well. So what it does is, at a minimum, it will drop in some basic information related to that PCM entity, the entity ID, entity type, what attributes have been changed recently, and a few other information. It will drop onto the Azure Service Bus. Message handler picks it up and then the processing starts. It uses the web SDK and calls the API endpoint onto the Contenthub and gets, using the entity ID, the target entity ID that was dropped onto the message, it pulls out all the related information from that entity, be it the properties, its relations, its complex types, its public lanes, what are the other related assets. It gets all that information out from Contenthub and then updates the sellable item entity inside Sitecore. So that's the whole flow of how the connector works. Any questions so far? I'll just pause here for a minute. No? Cool. Okay, so let's proceed to the demo and hopefully, fingers crossed, it works. It had some hiccups setting it up in the short span of time that I had, with a few of my sandboxes failing to import my data. But let's see if I can show you guys something else. Okay, so this is my Contenthub system. If you have seen Contenthub before, it's basically a collection of entities, like everything and anything inside Sitecore is an item. Similarly, anything and everything inside Contenthub is basically an entity type. And then you build up your entities by combining relations with other complex types or simple types and add in extra properties and attributes on top of your base entities. So the things that we are going to be targeting and talking about is basically called the PIM entities, PCM entities, we call it in Contenthub. And if I pick up this guy to show you how the entity structure looks like. So this is a raw view of the JSON entity, which is descriptive of this guy over here. It has a few properties in here. It has some relations. So relations are basically links to other complex entities, you can say, and they pull in the value from there. And other basic information related to that. And then there are a few other information like the public links of the assets and the relations and stuff. So when we call the API, the out using the web SDK, it basically is using this information and then putting it back into a sellable item, basically decoding this information and then putting it back into and matching up the properties inside a sellable item inside XC. Now, when I talked about actions and triggers, right? So those are the main areas of integration inside Contenthub. So to create an action is basically as simple as configuring what you want to drop at what place. And there are a bunch of options available. The one that I have configured drops in a message to the Azure Service Bus. So I've gone ahead and configured my Azure Service Bus with a few topics. Just put in the connection string, topic name, what type of message transformation you want. You can have multiple options over here. We are using Azure Service Bus for this one, but if you want, you can use an API call or an action script for that. And then just do a test connection. It works, you save it. So your action is ready to drop the message. Now, who initiates this action is dependent on what trigger you have configured. Now let's go back and have a look at the triggers. So I have created a trigger here for XC and Contenthub integration. So when you define a trigger, you have to basically define when that trigger needs to be initiated. Either it's on entity creation, modification, or deletion. I have chosen entity modification, and there are two options when you define a trigger. It's either in process or in background. So if you choose the execution type as in process, it will give you a lot more action options rather than just the post option. So if you choose background, what it does is you can add an action to it, the action that I have attached over here, and then you can define the conditions. These conditions are important to link because there are a lot of entities and a lot of properties and attributes inside Contenthub. So you have to be very careful in defining what definition it links to and what properties and attribute changes basically initiate that trigger. So for me, I've chosen PCM product entity, which is the base entity for this guy. And then I've selected in a few attributes and a few relation types over here that if anything has changed, initiate that action. Now, if I go ahead and I change this guy, now this should actually drop my message onto my Azure Service Bus. So I got my third message over here. And this is the basic information that you get as part of that first drop onto the Azure Service Bus. So you get your entity ID, which you can then use in the API call back into Contenthub to fetch the entire JSON message, the detailed JSON message with its properties, values, relations, and asset information. What type of entity? This is important for us because as I said, there's everything inside Contenthub is an entity. So there'll be tens and thousands of entity types inside Contenthub. You don't want to process all of them or filter them out. So our message only looks at that particular MPCM product entity. And then there are a few other information. If you want, you can use those. Now, once this gets dropped onto the Azure Service Bus, let me go back to my slide. The message handler is basically part of the Contenthub plugin that we have created. So on the engine initialization, we basically subscribe to the Azure Service Bus's message handler. So it's always listening and picking up the messages from the Azure Service Bus as and when they are dropped. After picking that up, it triggers a bunch of pipeline blocks. Now, as part of the enrichment flow of the pipeline blocks, what we do is we first have a look at that entity ID and see and call the API out to Contenthub and see whether it's a valid PCM product or not, or it's just any other dummy entity. Clearing a first few levels of validations, then we call the actual APIs out to fetch the related properties, assets, and the relation information and the public links. Sort them out, enrich them, validate them, and then assign them back onto the sellable item. Now, how the assignment works is actually through this thing called a mapper, which is defined in a policy file on the XC side. So if you don't know what a policy file is, it's basically like app settings config inside XC. We call them policies. What that does is it has a few values and mappings in there to basically enable the communication with Contenthub. First set of values are for connection to the Azure Service Bus. The second set of values over here are for communication to Contenthub. And the bottom part over here is basically defining the property mappings, which is what property in Contenthub's entity maps to what property in the sellable items entity. So if you see over here, like product name in Contenthub maps to a details section and the name property on the XC side. Product label maps to this guy, long description maps to this guy, so on and so forth. And these can be either the base sellable item entities properties, or you can even define your own using a composer template and then update the names or the mappings accordingly. and it will use the composer templates, additional properties or attributes that you have defined on the sellable item to do the mapping. We do use a few primary keys to maintain the consistency between the two items, the sellable item as well as the content hub. And the primary key can be defined by a choice. Right now, what we're using is something called a product number, which is part of the base PCM entity. So tomorrow, if you do have any other primary key or foreign key mapping that you want to use for your sync between Contenthub and XC, you can just update it, bootstrap the file, and then it'll start using that guy as the primary key. Okay. Now on the XC side, how that looks is it's pretty simple and straightforward. We created a new composer block. We added in a few extra properties which are part of or will be mapped in our JSON file. And once we assign it to the sellable item entity, what it does is basically the view gets added as a subview to the main sellable item. When it picks up and does the processing, it updates the values in there, and using the public link, which it fetches out from the assets, assigns the public link as part of a new component inside the sellable item itself. Now, how do we get the public link is basically it's through a bunch of hops inside the Content Hub itself, because I said Content Hub is a collection of a lot of entities. So the base PIM entity or the PCM entity doesn't have the public link in itself because it has relations to multiple assets. One product can have multiple images, right? That's how the relation works inside Content Hub. So we go to that particular asset using the JSON relation that is returned from the API call. This is the base asset which controls or which stores the image information. And from there, you can actually then look through a few relations and get access to the public links. So this link is then used and copied over to the sellable item. So if your PCM product on Content Hub has multiple images, we'll loop through all the assets and then get the public link out from all of them. Now, once you have the public link stored inside the sellable item entity, we do have an extension where we can then expose it out to the SXS storefront and then have another component on the front end side where you can not use the base image component, whereas then use the image URL that is being passed from the engine side and not the reference to the media library, basically the public URL that is being passed from the XC side and then render those images. So that's how the whole story gels together. Unfortunately, I do not have a SXS storefront set up right now, so I cannot show you that front URL, but that's the general flow that we had set up before. There's one more thing that I want to show you guys is the transformations, which is really a cool feature that you can use to show and transform the images on the fly. Now, what happens is you might have multiple images set up on Content Hub, right? But then how do you cater for thumbnails or hover images or listing images or product detail page images? Is through a thing called transformations inside Content Hub. Now, transformations allow you to dynamically on the fly, basically define the ratio and the aspect of an image. So if I define a transformation, I say don't crop it. I'll just give it a width of, let's say 40 and a height of 40. This is my thumbnail image for my product listing, let's assume. Create this transformation. Now I can use this guy. Now, if I go back to my image, I'll use my public link. Okay, oversight. Now this is my base image. Now, supposedly for my thumbnails or my product listing, I do not want to show this high resolution or a full width image. What I can do is I can just give my transformation as the one that I've predefined, and the image that gets returned from Contenthub using the same public link is being transformed accordingly. So you can define multiple transformations over here rather than modifying and having multiple images linked on the front end side. You can actually then define just the transformations as one of your product listing, product detail, thumbnails, icons, and all the stuff. And then on the front end side, when you actually render the image based on where it is being rendered, you can then just pass in a parameter with this transformation, which is just t equal to whatever is the transformation you want, and it will actually just render that aspect of that image. Cool. Okay, that brings me towards the end of my session. Any questions? No? Cool.
Thanks so much, Gurlin, for today. I really appreciate